Welcome back into the GSMC Sports Podcast for our final segment of the day, where I want to talk a little bit of MLB as we are sort of getting more so into baseball season. Last night was the first time in forever that we haven't had a basketball game, and we are going to be headed into the heart of the season very shortly. So I want to talk about some key performances from last night. But before I do want to touch a little bit on Paul Skenes' second career start. Didn't necessarily have the time to go over it all that much yesterday, so I wanted to sort of revisit that, where we saw him in his second career MLB start on Friday go out against the Cubs once again and pitch a masterclass 6 innings, 100 pitches, 11 strikeouts, 0 hits, 1 walk, 0 earned runs. So, like I mentioned, both of these games against the Cubs so far, that being said, it was a little bit interesting to see how this game was going to play out in terms of adjustments and who was going to have to make those adaptations headed into this second matchup between the Cubs lineup and Paul Skenes in something along the 10 days-ish. And as Paul Skenes said ahead of the game in an interview, go ahead and adjust. Good luck, which is pretty cold in my eyes, and he absolutely backed it up. He was incredible in this one. Again, masterclass is maybe a little bit exaggerating, but considering it was just these 6 innings, but he was absolutely lights out, and this is something that we are probably going to be seeing for a very long time. You know, one of these pitching prospects of a generation in terms of the excitement and the hype, and probably not going to be doing, every single time that he pitches an in-depth conversation about it. But as of right now, it does warrant it because there is that level of excitement. Now, unfortunately, like we talked about again before, it seems like the Pirates just need a little bit of that excitement on the offensive end as well to sort of supplement it. But again, this was great stuff from Skenes. It was interesting to see his change in approach from Game 1 to Game 2, where the velocity with him, especially on that fastball, is definitely what stands out throughout the course of these games, and he's still been dominant on his four-seamer so far, but his off-speed pitches have been very impressive as well, and all 4 of the main pitches in his arsenal so far that he throws have been, swing and miss, at least 30% whiff rate on every single one of those 4 pitches through his first 2 starts. We did see him sort of come into his game on Friday with a little bit more of a focus on his top 2 pitches in the four-seamer and the splitter, but he still has those other, tools in his arsenal. His slider was the one that got sort of hit around a little bit more his first time out a couple weeks ago, but he did a good job to at least, incorporate it into some different looks in this game, and he did use it to get out of a 10-pitch standoff with Michael Busch and end up striking him out in one of these instances as well. But in general here for Skenes, somebody who, is a burner, at least in terms of, throwing these high velocity pitches. The fact that he hasn't allowed, I should say, very much airtime on a lot of these, swings from other players. He's producing a lot of ground balls in terms of high flyers, and I think that is something that is super encouraging. We'll see how long that lasts for, but the next time we're going to see him is on Thursday afternoon. We're going to be, taking place here. Our show every day is at 2 o'clock Eastern. He is pitching at 12:35, so we will probably get through the majority of, if not the entirety of his start, so we'll maybe throw some thoughts in there as well and sort of give immediate reactions on how he looked in that matchup. So going to be good to see him finally not against the Cubs. He's going to have a very solid Giants offense on the other end to face off against, and we will definitely keep you updated there. But as for yesterday's top MLB performers, we just talked about Skenes and his pitching, so I wanted to hit on a couple different pitchers from yesterday, starting with Chris Sale, who, as a Boston fan, does have a little bit of a special place in my heart. Seeing him have this bounce-back season has been tremendous. Last night goes out 7 scoreless innings, 5 hits, 0 walks, 9 strikeouts, and he just continues to have a great season up to this point, where through his first 8 starts, he has just a 2.22 ERA and a .865 whip. So he's been tremendous for them. He's currently on a 20 consecutive scoreless innings stretch, which goes back a few games now. So love seeing him be able to put in this type of a performance. Now, knock on wood, the big concern with him obviously is injuries, and that's something that we're going to have to continue to look out for. Hopefully it's not an issue, but we did see him even in, these recent years where he was battling back from the injuries. We saw some of the, spots where he was able to shine, but again, it was just ultimately the injury bug just continued to catch up with him, and we're just hoping that that isn't the case, because he has a great chance here. They were reporting on the game live yesterday where they were talking about maybe the change in diet that he had over the offseason and how that could potentially sort of play into whether or not he's able to stay healthy. Hopefully that is an impactful thing for him so that he can remain out there. But Braves, he was able to actually break up a little bit of a losing streak for the Braves, where I believe it was 5 straight losses for them. I'm going to double check live on the spot here, but that is the first time that the Braves suffered that kind of a streak since the, I think, 2022 season, and that also included the game that they lost earlier in the day. Yesterday was a doubleheader, and Chris Sale got the latter of the two. They had lost earlier in the day. So Braves bounced back into the win column, and like I was talking about, they have an excellent chance this year to go the distance once again. It would be awesome to see Chris Sale pitching in a high-stakes environment like that once again. But some other pitching performances last night that I wanted to point out as well was Marcus Stroman. Now, obviously, didn't end the way that Yankees fans were hoping, because they end up blowing the save, and they end up blowing the save in this game. Clay Holmes was a little bit of a wreck in the stretch of this one. They were playing the Mariners, but sort of put that aside, the Yankees starting rotation has been unbelievable for them throughout the season, and Marcus Stroman sort of continued that trend last night with the performance that he put out there. 7 1/3 innings pitch, 1 earned run. It was 3 hits, 6 strikeouts. He did a very nice job for as long as he was in there. Seemed like he was maybe in for just a smidge too long in that 7th inning, but ultimately, this Yankees pitching staff has been really impressive so far, and that is all without Garrett Cole, who should be making his return on the sooner end. So things should ideally they should ideally get better. The hesitation comes from the Red Sox fan in me, but ultimately the Yankees being good is, good for the brand of baseball. So sometimes I just gotta take a deep breath before I give too many compliments away to the Yankees. But speaking of the Red Sox, we had Rafael Devers as well, homer for the 6th straight game, as the Red Sox had, a very nice win against the Tampa Bay Rays. They won 5-0. The 6 straight games with a home run is a franchise record for the Red Sox. So Devers, who started out the season struggling a little bit, he was dealing with some injuries even dating back to that first series of the year. He's now really coming alive over the past month or so and looking like the player that we know he is. So that was encouraging to see. Ultimately for the Red Sox, they are pretty much a last place team in the division. The Jays continue to struggle, which is pretty much the only thing holding the Red Sox out of 3 straight seasons with a last place finish in the AL East. But don't count them out, because I think that we could very easily still see that happen if the Jays offense can get themselves together. But one of the games of the night, if not the game of the night, other than that Mariners-Yankees game, was the comeback by the Marlins. And this was a really crazy finish. So, top performance has to go to the Marlins offense down the stretch. They were losing 2-1 in the bottom of the 9th with 2 outs, no runners on. And we saw D. Gordon single. He ended up stealing second base, and Otto Lopez drove him in to tie the game in the bottom of the 9th. And then it was Josh Bell walking it off in the 10th to pick up the Marlins' 5th walk-off win for the season, which is tied for the most in the MLB this year. This was a really tough loss for the Brewers, obviously, but seems like I wouldn't say they were robbed necessarily, because it wasn't a call that went against their favor, but it was just the, physics of the world here, where they were in prime position to score a 3rd run in the top of the 9th when it was Monasterio was just about to round third base on a Jake Bauers hit to right field, but the ball bounced into right field and stuck itself underneath the wall. So it ended up being ruled a ground rule double for what would have been an at least run scoring double. Possibly Bauers could have even made it to 3rd based off of how it should have bounced off the wall. But instead, the Brewers don't end up scoring there. Andrew Nardi comes in relief and escapes a bases-loaded situation with no runs scored in the inning, at least keeping the door open for the Marlins to make this comeback and end up walking it off. So again, really brutal one for the Brewers there, where it just seems like sometimes, things just don't fall your way, but that was an unruly way for things to unfortunately break for them. But still standing at the top of their division, and I think that things should continue that way, so they don't need to beat themselves up too much. But let me know what your thoughts are on the latest storylines in the MLB. For now, though, that is all the time we have for today. Thank you very much for tuning into the GSMC Sports Podcast. Thank you to the GSMC Sports Network for allowing us to host this show. Remember to like, follow, subscribe wherever you keep up with us. Check us out on socials as well for more exclusive short content. We will be back tomorrow, 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern, and we will see you then. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.